After a simple reload, every single user got access denied. The login page showed the default Jenkins user database, not our LDAP realm. What broke? A typo in the YAML key. Let's break down Jenkins configuration as code, JCasC, how it works, and the exact mistake behind that failure. JCasC is a plugin that reads a YAML file at startup and applies it to configure Jenkins. It covers everything from system settings and security realms to tools and cloud providers. Think of it as a recipe card for your Jenkins server. To get started, install the plugin, create a Jenkins YAML file, and point Jenkins to it via the JCasC environment variable. On restart, Jenkins applies the configuration automatically. The YAML structure mirrors Jenkins configuration objects. The root keys include Jenkins, security, credentials, and more. You can use the configuration as code schema endpoint to discover all valid keys. Secrets management is critical. Use environment variables with the variable syntax or integrate with HashiCorp Vault. Always test secret resolution via the configuration as code resolve endpoint. JCasC shines in containerized environments. You can bake the YAML into a Docker image or use a Kubernetes config map. This ensures every Jenkins pod starts with the same configuration. Always validate your YAML before applying to production. Use YAMLint for syntax and the /configuration as code /check config endpoint for structure. Test changes in a staging environment first. Hot reload is convenient but risky. For security-related changes, always restart Jenkins. Use a reload token to automate reloads for non-critical updates. This is the same issue we highlighted at the start. Here's exactly why that happened. The YAML file had a typo in the security realm key, for example, security realm misspelled. When JCasC applied the file, it didn't recognize the key, so it reset the security realm to the default Jenkins user database. The reload made it worse because the fix required a restart. The YAML used realm instead of security realm, causing JCasC to reset to the default user database and lock everyone out. The fix corrected the key to security realm. The fix was straightforward. Restore the correct YAML from Git, fix the typo to security realm, and restart Jenkins. We also added a pre-commit hook to validate YAML syntax and structure, preventing this from happening again. YAML doesn't allow tabs. Using a tab instead of spaces can cause the entire section to be ignored or a parsing error. Always use spaces for indentation. A simple typo like security realm instead of security realm causes JCasC to ignore the entire security section. The result? The security realm resets to the default Jenkins user database, locking everyone out. If the Kubernetes plugin isn't installed, JCasC silently ignores the cloud configuration. You won't see an error, but the agents won't work. Always install plugins before applying their config. The article mentions YAML anchors, but doesn't show a full example. Here's how to define a reusable LDAP configuration block with anchors and aliases, reducing duplication across multiple security realms or environments. JCasC plugin versions before one had different YAML keys, e.g. Jenkins, model, Jenkins versus Jenkins. The article assumes plugin 1+. If using an older version, consult the migration guide. Always pin the plugin version in your plugins, TXT, to avoid surprises. The article suggests validating YAML in CI, but doesn't provide a concrete pipeline snippet. Here's a declarative pipeline that validates the JCasC YAML using the check config endpoint and fails on errors. To debug JCasC issues, start by checking Jenkins logs for any cask messages. Use the check config endpoint to validate the YAML structure. For deeper issues, enable debug logging with a Groovy script. Let's run through some common interview questions. What is JCasC and how does it differ from Groovy init scripts? JCasC is declarative YAML, Groovy scripts are imperative and harder to maintain. How do you manage secrets in JCasC? Use environment variables with VAR or integrate with Vault. What are limitations of hot reload? cannot handle structural changes like security realms, prefer restart for critical updates. And a few frequently asked questions. What is JCasC? A plugin to define Jenkins master config in YAML. Can JCasC configure jobs? No, use Jenkins file or job DSL. How to validate YAML? Use YAMLint and check config endpoint. To wrap up, remember, JCasC lets you manage Jenkins as code. Always validate your YAML, use environment variables for secrets, and prefer restarts over reloads for critical changes. This approach ensures reproducibility and disaster recovery. Ready to go deeper? Up next, Jenkins Job DSL, then Jenkins Monitoring with Prometheus, then Jenkins Performance Tuning. Find them all at TheCodeForge.io. Thanks for watching. The full article and code examples are covered in detail at TheCodeForge.io.